I recently did an interview with Koffee Comics about Western manga, and I wanted to make a reflection. I want to start by saying that I don't agree with everything he said, and the reason I didn't push back too much is because this was an interview. I saw his content, I asked him for an interview, not a debate. I wanted to learn about his philosophy, share it with my audience, and potentially change my own approach to Western manga. When I did push back, it was to extract more arguments and supporting evidence from him. Once I felt like he explained his side enough, and challenging him more wouldn't push the conversation much further, I moved on. So let's start with where I agree with him. I agree that there aren't many great examples of Western mangaka that we can look up to. Ignoring the controversies behind Saturday AM, which you can find on his channel, Whyt manga used to be my go-to example, but there are two problems. One, he can't make a living off his manga and YouTube alone, much less his manga alone. Two, he has been working on his manga for about 10 years and only has 4 volumes out. His G-Pen tutorial, where he's inking a page, was 10 years ago, and his serialization video was 9 years ago. I'm not trying to question his work ethic, but when I see Japanese mangaka making 2 to 4 volumes a year, it shows how far behind Western manga artists are. I'm not saying I could do better, I'm just laying out the facts and the optics. Furthermore, the way he was published didn't inspire confidence. It seemed like his manga was the only one getting real attention in Saturday AM, so that wouldn't inspire others to follow his lead, in my opinion. The next example is ddmark with Ruthless render. Once again, ignoring any controversies. His manga has been published for about a year, and it only has 10 chapters. However, each chapter is around 40 pages, which is double the weekly manga count, so that rounds up to about 20 chapters in a year. That's solid, but my issue rises with the connection to Manga Plus. Does he own his IP? Is he making money? At the end of chapter 10, he said he doesn't get paid, despite Manga Plus's promise of 1 million yen for gold awards. So once again, he's not inspiring anyone to follow his path. Back to the IP. What if he doesn't want to work with Manga Plus anymore? Can he just leave, or does he have contractual obligations? I value independence, so these are things that I look at. Once again, his path is not one anyone would follow. The last example is the Lucas brothers with Project Divider. They've been working on their project since November 20, 2016, according to Insta. Despite all the character designs, the Webtoons page has Chapter 0, Chapter 0.5, and what I believe is Chapter 1. I skimmed Chapter 1 and it looked like a rough draft. There's no point even discussing publishing, income, or ownership here because there's barely finished content. Make no mistake, I'm not saying I'm a great example. We're all bad examples. That's exactly why I haven't discussed Western manga much on my channel. When I feel like I can lead by example, I will start to talk more about it. In summary, the Western manga market/industry is a mess, and Koffee and I agree upon that. However, where we disagree is on which paths are viable or not. His strategy with Onsoru Go is to build their own publishing company and get their books into stores alongside self-advertising at conventions and seminars. My strategy is to grow my social media influence and transfer it to my manga, which I self-publish through Amazon KDP. The reason I prefer my strategy is because we actually have proof of independent comic artists as recently as last year being successful with this path. Eric from isom, which is a comic, and RDC with Dark Lights. Dark Lights hasn't proven to be a success yet, but it's already getting a professionally made anime on a major streaming platform. From what I know, we don't have modern examples of indies getting their comic books onto shelves and becoming a success. Despite this, Koffee argued that the influencer path wasn't sustainable. I disagree for 2 reasons. 1, like I just said, we have growing examples of people actually being successful like this. 2, we don't have proof of this path being unsustainable. We can make predictions, but as of now, neither of the creators have crashed out yet due to handling YouTube and manga, so it's too early to make that call. I can't say which path will fail and which will succeed. I'm not going to rule anything out because there isn't enough data, but I know which path I want to take. If you guys have alternate solutions, go ahead and put them in the comments. The second thing I disagree with is his messaging. I'll start with a popular quote. At the end of the day, people won't remember what you said or did. They will remember how you made them feel. End quote. Maya Angelou. I asked Koffee if he thought he could reach more people if he softened the edges on his messaging. He said he didn't want to and was willing to pay the price. But if I'm being honest, his response sounded like hoping. He said if people hated him because of his harshness and he lost support as a result, it wouldn't matter because he still had a real job. Okay, but if your goal is to make Western manga successful, you need the support of others. You can fall back on your job, but then your dream and your cause die because of your pride. You won't be a manga artist without supporters, and despite you saying that the push of mana will continue without you, you are the spearhead, the front line of mana. People only know the word mana because of you. You are the only OGO member with a full volume. Bloody Hell is ranked first on Onsoru Go. If you go down, the ship goes down with you. I believe the growth of mana is heavily correlated with your growth. I could be wrong, but from my research on the other OGO members, none of them have as large as a following or influence as you do. To me, this looks like a character test in a movie. Which do you value more, your unfiltered thought or the success of mana? The reason I bring up messaging is because if you've seen his videos, you know he's brutal, even if he's right. He'll say something like, Your manga makes no money, and it's just a dopamine hit with no substance. You're wasting time, you have no direction, and your manga's a ripoff. I think it's even harsher than this, but imagine if you talk like this. You have great art, but you're not bringing out your full potential. You don't have enough chapters, and you can change that. Take advantage of the situation you've been blessed with. Take ownership and responsibility for your manga. Become great. One is insulting, and the other is constructive tough love, despite both having truth. When he's too harsh, he alienates the artist's fans, and regular people who have no skin in the game. In 2 of his ddmark videos, he even asked Mark to DM him so that they could talk. But that probably won't happen since he said his manga ripped off JJK and CSM, and he's brutal on other creators. What do you lose by filtering your message a little, and what do you gain? Listen, if he softened his edges and sacrificed his unfiltered thoughts to be a little more constructive and polite, there'd be a higher chance of him making connections with these artists, their fans, and unrelated people. He'd have a higher chance of getting that interview with Mark, but he would also have a higher chance of recruiting them into Onsor Go. No one would stop supporting him just because he changed his delivery. There's nothing to lose except the ability to be unfiltered. Imagine if Project Divider and Ruthless Render joined the Manaa movement. It would skyrocket. Last thing, if I were to create a term for American manga, it wouldn't be Manaa. Initially, I said that it was the only option that made sense due to the roles played by the others. All terms have the first syllable as mon, and the second and last syllable ending with a. The Asian languages are all similar, so simply choosing a word for comics resulted in this trend. France accomplished this by taking the letters from the country's name to make manfra. I clearly never put much thought into making an American one, because the answer is obvious. Manca. The ka comes from the end of America. That concludes my reflection. I wish Koffee the best, and I hope the Western manga industry will get better. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, share, subscribe, and help me revolutionize the manga industry by buying my manga and spreading the word. All important links will be in the description.